Welcome. So before we get going, just to do some general housekeeping homework, that's a fantastic NYU shirt. I'm totally jealous, I have to be honest. Fantastic, well done. Does anybody have any questions regarding yesterday's session? I think the first session in particular, given the fact that Chris is going to walk us through the integrative learning component of Midjourney today. But does anybody have anything that they'd like to raise, any questions or subjects before we introduce our next guest? That's easy enough, right? All right. So without further ado, I am very excited. Our next guest really is at the forefront of technology and has been so for years, probably for over a decade at this point, maybe 2 decades? No, almost. I am very excited to introduce everybody to Mr. Garrett Sloane. Garrett is the Chief Technology Reporter of Ad Age and has been nominated for several awards as a journalist. He's been breaking news for years, and he's done so with everything from the recent branding change from Twitter into X. And if you check out his background right now on LinkedIn, you'll see some amazing reporting that he's done surrounding YouTube. Garrett is also the co-host of Marketer's Brief podcast, and he has a video show called Ad Age Remotely. He, this summer, was a featured speaker in Cannes at the Cannes Creativity Festival. So with that, please welcome Garrett Sloane.
Again. Thanks, Mark.
All right.
I didn't want to say how many decades I've been doing this, but it has been closer to 2 than 1.
2 decades.
2 decades, closer to 2 decades. Can everyone hear me, or do I use this mic too?
I think the mic will help you.
All right. Everyone can hear me here?
Great.
Oh, good.
So how long have you been doing it?
I've been a journalist since 2003, 4, probably, so 2 decades.
Where did you learn to become a journalist?
I actually had to travel around the world. I started in Costa Rica as a journalist for an online newspaper, so it was like just starting out online, and news was going in that direction. There was an online newspaper in Central America that I was reporting for, and breaking news there, but not covering technology yet. And I got into technology when I started working at the New York Post about 10 years ago. And so I've been covering advertising technology, Meta, which was Facebook at the time, Google, all the tech companies, you know.
So we've been talking about AI, and we'll be talking about AI the entire week. And obviously, for those of you that were here yesterday, you know I have this little obsession with regards to AI and doomsday. So I want to ask you first, just to open up, really, is AI dangerous?
I do like this question. Of course, I've thought about it a lot, and everything runs the gamut from either it's going to destroy us all in the next 6 months, or it's just let's build, and I think everyone's dealing between the people who are build, just say let AI do its thing, let's not slow down here, because what if it cures cancer? What if it does something amazing that would make it all worth it? And so those are the optimists. I'm like any good journalist, somewhere in the middle, I would guess, and I'm like, the things that scare me about it are that it could quickly lead to, in the news industry, quickly lead to things like misinformation. It spins up any sort of news or image or sort of information that could be artificially created that will flood the information landscape and make us question sort of what is real information. It can write books and do anything. It can create fake studies, create fake anything. So that, I think, is the immediate, it can do that right now, and it's going to do that with video soon. Video is not as great as like photos and text in AI. It's not as advanced yet, but once it's doing video, then just imagine it'll take any one of us and make a video, and just, that's a scary proposition, I think, that information flooding.
So misinformation and disinformation is interesting also. We had the New York State Assemblyman Vanel here yesterday. We were talking a little bit about ethics. So I guess my question is, have you seen AI kick off a significant amount of misinformation and or disinformation beyond like a hallucination? And if so, how will we control the ethics and the biases that result as a, you know, as far as getting that misinformation into the news?
How do we, that's several questions. It's like, how do you control the bias in the AI to help us generate news? Like, can we go to it and say, hey, AI, give me the news about the presidential race without being biased about it? Which is one thing you definitely want to have. I guess that happens to be with training models, and that goes beyond my pay grade, as I probably told you before, like how you actually train these. But then is there actual misinformation now? Yes, the AI can be used to create websites, and is being used to create websites, and then you just flood the websites with fake news, and then those fake news items can be sent to the top of the search engine optimization when you're searching Google. So Google has to be on the lookout for AI-generated websites that just share nothing but fake news or misinformation.
So is Google actively looking out for that now?
Everyone on the internet is I think so. I mean, they're working on it. I don't know how good they're going to be at it, but they're definitely working on it. And these are like, who did you have yesterday?
Assemblyman Vanel. Clyde Vanel.
Clyde Vanella.
Yeah.
Thank you, High Assemblyman, if you're watching. Senator Schumer's hosting Meta, Google, Microsoft, and maybe another. So it's at the U.S. Senate too, where they're talking about these topics, and that was just announced today. So.
Do you think Google though knows how to is it even possible to have that kind of far reach and be ahead of misinformation and disinformation like that? AI generated misinformation.
I don't know. I think it's going to take it was going to take a lot of work, but like you said, is it going to be biased? What are they going to say is misinformation? What results will they take out of the search engines? What results will they downrank? So it becomes a tough question. That's why some people say Google censors the internet already. I'm not subscribing to that. I just heard that as like a complaint from some people, but it's sort of necessary. Like, and I've heard other people talk about it this way, that like once the information landscape is flooded with AI-generated news and content, maybe we do have to return back to media gatekeepers that we trust, that we know have vetted this information. Like if I go, they know this image that's circulating online is not, Joe Biden doing something, or not like a real image that was not fake and generated. So if you go to some trusted source, whatever it is, you're gonna have to have some trusted source of ground truth going forward, because AI, and again, back to, is AI going to destroy us all? That's just what I think is the immediate threat of AI. In the long term, I don't think I don't subscribe to the fact that it's going to like take over, the Pentagon or something like that. I think that'll be far-fetched.
So yesterday I finished the quotes regarding these doomsday ideas. The last quote I gave was from OpenAI's founder, Sam Altman, and he had a doomsday quote. So do you think he knows actually like what he's doing? Like, in other words, he's created this platform, but can the AI be trained to the point where there's a tipping point and it kind of is going faster than what even Sam Altman expected. And then all of a sudden, we have this like tidal wave of AI generated content that can have this type of impact on society that you're describing as it relates to misinformation and disinformation. So like, do you think even the creators of these artificial intelligence, like Sam Altman specifically,
in control?
Yeah, do you think he knows what he's doing?
Well, I think he knows what he's doing there because I think that's hyperbolic to generate interest in OpenAI. Like, oh, this, like, it gets everyone's attention. OpenAI is a fascinating case in my industry covering this stuff as a journalist because last year we were all talking about Web3 and the metaverse and things like that. All of a sudden ChatGPT came out with just something you could go in and sort of act like a search engine. You'd go in and you'd ask it to write something and it would, and it was fun, but it didn't seem that groundbreaking, right? It would just spit out like a Wikipedia article for you.
Quickly.
And quickly. So it was just interesting that we were conversing with it, and it was fascinating, but that was a marketing thing. It just sprung this into the public, and then all of a sudden everything became AI, and we all became focused on that. Web3 and the metaverse sort of moved to the background, and then it was AI. So Sam Altman, I think, helped start that shift in the conversation, even though Google, Meta, OpenAI, we're all working on these large language models and chatting. They just had it in a box. Now, so I think his doomsday prediction was probably more marketing than anything. Like, hey, we've got something that can destroy the world. Great, let's check it out. But I don't think it will. The thing that they say AI will work to is what? General artificial intelligence, which is right now it's pretty stupid. It doesn't do anything you don't tell it to do, or it doesn't know anything that hasn't been fed to it. Once AI, if it could ever reach a general intelligence, then people think it'll be like as if an alien came down to Earth and was a million times smarter than us, because AI that's actually self-fulfilling is the scarier prospect. But I don't know if that's even possible. Like, can computers be conscious? I don't know.
I guess we'll find out. Right?
Find out.
So when you mention the competitors, like, what are they up to? What's Google, Meta, and Microsoft up to, and how are they pushing back on the rapid growth and interest in OpenAI?
That's what I was covering a lot, because I write about Google, Meta, Microsoft for longer than OpenAI, since they've been around longer, obviously. And after OpenAI came out, then Google and Meta, which was Facebook, they were all like, wait a minute, we've been developing this stuff for 20 years. You know, you have the machines like Amazon's Alexa that you talk to. That's sort of an AI. There's machine learning in there. And am I speaking well? This is too loud or too low?
You're beautiful.
We're good?
You're beautiful.
Good, all right.
Perfect.
So then they saw OpenAI came out, and they were like, oh man, this is the worst. We've been doing this for years, but we've been keeping it under wraps. And I think they were doing that for a reason, because it's scary to say, oh, hey, we're working on AI. There was a Google engineer about a year ago that had to leave the company because he was saying the Google AI he was working on told him to get a lawyer because the AI had human rights or AI rights, and he convinced the engineer that he was sentient. If you talk to ChatGPT, like I said, they hallucinate. These text messaging machines hallucinate. So well before OpenAI, Google was having this PR problem of like, what kind of AI does it have in the basement that's turning engineers into thinking that they love them? So that was an interesting case, but then OpenAI sort of blew open the box, and that's when Google and Meta all said, you know what, we're going to release our models, and there's no stopping this train. So they all released something this year. You have Microsoft, Google, Meta, all with large language models, different approaches, and it's all very much tied to advertising and brands because all the advertising on the internet is powered by machine learning and will be increasingly powered by generative AI, where all the ads you see are created by AI. So that's where it's all going.
So what are you seeing as far as OpenAI's competition goes that will be distinguishable from OpenAI's product offering? So like start with Google. I think let's keep it simple. And Google, I know that you just recently made some interesting Google announced some interesting news with regards to their AI. So why don't we start there? What's Google doing that's different from the competition, and where do you think it's gonna lead?
Yeah, that was an interesting case too, because Microsoft is working with OpenAI. So they took ChatGPT and put it into Bing. So if you go to the Bing chat, you'll start talking to Bing. And will Bing be a better search engine than Google? Well, that all of a sudden you're not just talking about AI, you're talking about search, and that's Google's home turf, right? They don't want to have any break in that wall. So that's also why Google went quickly into releasing its own version of an AI search, generative search experience, I believe it's called GSE. And they have something called Bard, which is the answer to Bing Chat and ChatGPT. Bard is Google's answer. So you can go into Google services and see for yourself which one does better in terms of generating responses for you or creating something. So Google put it into search first. And it also has a large digital advertising industry, so it's incorporated generative AI into creating ads, and it has more ad products that are based on, hey, take all my assets as a brand or a company and feed it into the AI, and then the AI can know my brand and generate more material for me, more content.
Is that available for companies now?
Yeah, they're doing that now, and they're doing it with major ad agencies. The major top ones, the biggest ones in the world, like Omnicom, WPP, IPG, all the big agencies. Companies like Coca-Cola are embracing this stuff. Oreo cookies, they all see this future. When I talk to advertisers, they talk about I have to rush and get all my stuff into Google's AI, all my content, so that once this rolls out even more broadly, I'm 6 months ahead of the game. So advertisers are very much pushing to embrace this AI.
Have you seen any of the content from this new Google product yet? And is it good?
It's tough to say which ads are AI generated. It's more like it's not like a Super Bowl ad yet. You're not going to see that happen. We're talking about programmatic ads where you're just on YouTube and you see an ad for jeans and it's your favorite jean company, and all of a sudden it knows you better because it's AI generated, and it's it knows you like the color this, and it just knows a little more. So the ads are not like beautiful, Ridley Scott edited films here. They're just programmatic ads, so for them everywhere. But they'll get better and better. I mean, there will be more.
So how do you see that impacting the creator economy and advertising agencies in particular? Is that going to have a chilling effect on the creative class?
Obviously, that's what people are most scared of, and like we said, I'm a journalist, so it scares me too. There's newspapers that are just putting out AI-generated news stories.
I saw that.
It was Gannett, and there was covering their local sports in I forget what town, but the article wasn't any good, so I wasn't scared of ChatGPT generated articles yet. So I don't think anyone should be just yet. But it is more like search. If you're a student, you're not going to go to ChatGPT to write your paper, but if you don't know ChatGPT, then you're going to do your paper more slowly. You're not going to be ahead of the game. So and same with the creative industries. Like you just have to use these tools like you would have used Photoshop 10 years ago. Like I don't think it's going to replace those jobs. It's going to make your job easier or better.
So let's talk about the quality of these ad campaigns for a minute. You've written a lot about these major corporations. You spoke a little bit about AI integrating with celebrity marketing. So in your opinion, like what are the best and worst executions in the creative class through the use of AI? So if you were going to say like top 2 or 3, let's start with the positive, top 2 or 3 best executions creatively through the use of AI, which would you highlight?
I love going to see what some of the cool ones are. Like I said, like on LinkedIn, a lot of people I follow, there's just random tinkerers who are enthusiastic about going to especially image generation. Like if you're on the Dolly or Stable Diffusion was one of them, and Midjourney, where they're doing the images, and you can go in and just be like, hey, give me an image of Santa Claus riding a donkey. I don't know what it'd be. Whatever you want. The thing spits out. So that's cool things. I've seen a lot on LinkedIn. One of my favorite is collabs, fantasy brand collaborations. So if you want to go see, I don't know, someone I follow on LinkedIn was putting Nike stores on Mars, and like really thinking about creative ideas that you can spin up now in 5 seconds, where it would have taken Nike 6 months to do a collab. Oh, I want to do a collab with Coach, luxury wear, and Nike.
Right.
So my sneakers look like, and the images are coming out and they're just cool. So fantasy collabs is probably one of my just like fun obsessions. And then now you're gonna see, just like if you're on anywhere, you're gonna see collabs everywhere. You're not even gonna know if they were generated by AI or not. You're like, wait, is that real? Is Twinkie and United Airways really teaming up on a Twinkie-looking plane?
Sure. So for big brands though, have you seen like any perfectly executed campaigns that are getting, full digital distribution, broadcast television distribution through the use of AI?
We've seen some use of AI in ads. I don't think like a Super Bowl ad, like I said.
Yeah.
There may be some examples that I'm not thinking of where it's like they sort of used AI, but nothing too advanced.
Yeah. When do you think we'll be there though? When do you think it will? Do you think it will be ubiquitous, and when? Like, will the use of AI in creating ad campaigns be ubiquitous?
It is. I don't mean to say it's not already. I mean, like, will it create the TV ads you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually, like it will. Like, it'll be built into Disney's ad platform that when you're on Disney Plus, it's going to generate ads based on AI and your personalized viewing experience that will do video ads. But one of the hurdles here is the video problem, because if anybody knows, video is one of the hardest things for AI to actually do well. Like if you see AI generated video, it's kind of janky. I don't know if anyone's seen the Will Smith eating spaghetti videos. One in the back has seen this. Well, search for Will Smith eating spaghetti AI, and you can just see why that's still not quite perfect. AI cannot recreate someone eating spaghetti, apparently.
How far off are we, though, from AI being able to execute on that?
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm just not as technically savvy. Your next guest may know, but maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's harder than I think. But once video is that easy, yes, that will be able to do TV commercials. Right now, advertisers are using this stuff to conceive of campaigns, write tweets, using AI to write LinkedIn posts. Like, AI is being used. It's just in different, more subtle ways.
So brands have shifted their dollar allocation and their budget significantly towards paid social over the past 5-7 years, especially with the advent or the beginning of direct-to-consumer brands. We've seen a lot of money go towards that. How do you see artificial intelligence disrupting the social media vertical, for paid media specifically?
Yeah, that's probably where the advertising is being used the most. Like the ad platforms do have, Meta has released into their ad manager, which is where you just go in to set up the campaign to say, hey, I want to reach 10,000 people in this location, and you put in all your brand assets, and then it runs the campaign for you. That's where it's already using AI now. They've released, and Google has in their ad tech platform, they've released where you put in your assets, your photos, all your brand imagery, all your brand copy, and the AI generates 1,000 different types of ads for different types of people, which is what you're seeing on.
It's very affordable for smaller brands.
And it makes it cheap, exactly. So if you're DTC, it's just cheaper to spin up, and you just let it run, and it finds your customers without you having to do anything anymore. You used to have to be in the ad platform and really look for your specific audience and really test and really do everything. AI is making that much easier to do. So if you start a brand, if you go on Midjourney and create a fake brand that you think is cool, get creative assets out of Midjourney, put them into Facebook, get ChatGPT to write your copy for you, you can create a brand in 10 seconds.
It's incredible.
Maybe a little longer, but.
Yeah, but it's incredible. So there are a lot of these tools coming through the social media specter right now. I saw, for example, TikTok has created an AI tool specifically to develop avatars, and they also have I don't know if they've launched it yet, but a script generator. So what are those? What is this AI tool that creates avatars? What is TikTok's script generator? And what's that going to do to the social media landscape?
The script generator sounds like if you're on TikTok and you don't know what to do, you can ask the script like, hey, what TikTok should I do? And it'll tell you, oh, crack an egg on your head and run around in a circle. And then you'll go viral because it knows what's trending. I'm not sure that's a trend, but I made that
That's
up.
a trend.
That is a trend.
Yeah.
Crack an egg on your head.
Yes.
Trend. So AI will tell you to do that, which is another danger of AI, by the way. If TikTok's AI is telling you to do something, don't do everything TikTok's AI tells you to do, folks. But so that's one thing, the script generator. Then there's the AI avatar.
Yep. They have a new tool, right, to create avatars. So if those are lifelike, what will happen to influencer marketing?
Well, those could be if you're already an influencer, you could take your avatar and have it go do stuff for you and make you money while you're doing nothing,
right,
perhaps. But there also are AI VR influencers on their own, so brands are creating those. I forget which ones now off the top of my head, but there are brands that have created K-pop stars that are virtual, and they own the IP. And AI can create music, AI can create all these things that are just making it easier to spin this stuff up.
So I don't know if you're paying attention to the strike in Hollywood as it relates to both, the celebrities and the screenwriters. But it's kind of interesting coming off of this concept of avatars or digital twins of a celebrity. Do you think that perhaps the strike, the studios in particular, are missing a big component surrounding digital twins? Like, if celebrities no longer really need to do the work and AI can create the content, and I'm thinking really as it relates to the ad industry, but I guess it extends all the way into long format films, feature films. If the celebrity can leverage his or her digital twin to create content fueled by AI, are the studios in more trouble than they realize?
It's funny that you put it that way. Are they the ones in trouble? The actors were the ones who were like, no, don't take our AI image and use it without our consent or like.
But that's what I see. I see the actor owning his or her AI, her digital twin. The studios don't have that.
Well, that's what I think, like if you're if you're in the film as some, it goes both ways. But you're right though, the studios I think are concerned because pretty much you're going to be able to generate your own script and have the AI generate the video, and people will be able to put out content and movies at fast rates that will compete with the studios. If you are the actor alone, like, oh wait, I have a great script, I can make this movie in 2 months on this new technology.
And then that's pushing into the advertising space, right? Like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that LeBron James and Aaron Rodgers were recently, through the use of AI, featured in a gambling site's commercial. Was it WSN?
Was that illicitly, or they were supposed to?
It's my understanding that they were willing to participate, but the campaign was fueled by artificial intelligence.
I think Snoop Dogg's done some of that too. So it happens, yeah.
Right?
It's happening.
So I guess there could be a transformation as it relates to brands interacting with social media through the use of AI, and then also celebrity marketing and influencer marketing can be impacted through digital twins and avatars as it relates to AI.
That's definitely happening, and I think what's also this more, I hate to turn things sinister because I am an optimist, but you also see it being used like on some YouTube ads I've seen where they're taking famous voices and using computer-generated software to take people's voices who are popular, maybe a popular YouTube star, and these are not for like good products. They're just sort of like crappy, YouTube sales pitch type ads. So I think you're able to take images and you're able to do it quickly. So it is affecting everything. But I think it's just it complicates things once you add this to the mix.
So there's a company named 11 Labs that I think is at the forefront of using AI to impact voice or voiceover. And as a result, we're getting all of these deep fakes, right? So how do you see deep fakes influencing or impacting the ad industry? Because it seems to me that people are excited when they all of a sudden recognize the Pope wearing a white Montclair and it looks super real. More people are paying attention to that than perhaps the traditional campaign. So where's the tension going to happen as it relates to deep fakes in the advertising world, and then brands protecting their intellectual property and consumers not understanding that the brand is not creating those campaigns?
When it's like the Balenciaga one and it was not authorized, or maybe it was, who knows, they're that genius that it was done very well. But so yeah, it can be, does affect brands. They are worried about their intellectual property. The brands are, first and foremost, when they're using these tools, and anyone who's going to be creating through AI is going to need this. They got to go to like Adobe or somewhere else where the AI is only using authorized and licensed imagery. So that's the concern, is that when you're using AI as a brand, you're stealing someone else. Was that AI model trained on data that's not yours or images that are not yours? So when it pumps something out, Walt Disney doesn't come to you and say, hey, that looks an awful lot like Mickey Mouse or something. So you have to go to, they're all trying to work this through where, okay, the AI models we use only use our images, only use our stuff. So that's one thing brands are doing. The other thing is on the deepfakes, YouTube and Universal Music just made a deal where they're collaborating on AI-generated music, which is another interesting topic because they're taking things like Frank Sinatra voice and making him sing like, obviously Frank is no longer with us, but he is able to sing thanks to the magic of AI, and people are just taking his voice and creating these songs like Frank Sinatra singing a popular hip hop song or something. They're quite good. They sound like Frank Sinatra, but they're not authorized by his family, so they're YouTube is working with Universal Music Group just to explore this stuff. Like, what do we do when somebody takes straight voice and makes them sing something?
So what happens? I mean, right now the Barbie movie is so hot, right? Have you seen it?
I gotta see it. I'm still waiting. I was on the Oppenheimer side of that one. It was wrong.
You got to get in there.
Wrong choice.
You got to get in there. I saw Barbie, and it's incredible. I would highly recommend that you see it.
I will.
And I think Johnny Cash sang. Obviously, it wasn't Johnny Cash, but somebody created Johnny Cash singing the Barbie Girl song.
Oh, not in the movie though. This was just done.
Correct. I believe it was user-generated content. So, what are brands supposed to do when individuals can manipulate and use AI to create visual expressions of the brands, right? You have video, you'll have photography type of imagery, photorealistic imagery of brands. And I would imagine there are these tidal waves of user-generated content surrounding Barbie, like the Johnny Cash example. What should brands expect? Like, is this a dangerous area for them where their intellectual property that they've built and preserved and have spent millions of dollars to invest in, to create over the years, is it at risk now?
Probably, it's definitely a risk, but interesting note on Johnny Cash, Roseanne Cash was part of the UMG YouTube announcement. So Roseanne Cash, I guess, was probably had seen that too. So the estate of Johnny Cash is looking for that. I heard that song; it was pretty good. But the other thing is brands are, and they were worried about that with NFTs and Web3 too. Like, there was someone who was making sort of a McDonald's mashup into NFTs, and it got very popular. And they were using McDonald's whole sort of imagery, but it wasn't McDonald's. It was a mashup. It was a whole repurposed recreation. Still, McDonald's was able to get that project shut down and kicked off OpenSea.
Right.
So you go right to the platforms and the gatekeepers and you say, get it off there, and it seems to work. But again, in the apocalyptic version of AI where it's just flooded, is there any way to stop it? It's something that brands are thinking about and worried about.
So what can happen if there's so much AI user-generated content surrounding Gucci's spring fashion show? Like, can there be a negative element to that as it impacts brands like Gucci and Vuitton and Hermes?
Yeah, have we been through a big fashion week since AI has come around? We'll have to see, but no, there's a new one coming up in September. There's always a fashion week, but I think it's good for their brands, but they're also very litigious and very on top of it, right? The luxury brands are very,
but how can they control it? Like what's going to happen?
It's just sort of like the Canal Street, but in the internet, right?
Right.
So that's what they'll do. They'll just keep policing and policing.
Canal Street on the internet is a fantastic categorization. I love that.
Thank you. That's why I'm a writer. So.
Amazing. All right, so beyond that, let's go back to the influencer marketing piece for a second. Ready Player Me just announced that they're launching something called Life Forms. Do you know a little bit about it, and how is that going to impact traditional influencer marketing?
Yeah, like Ready Player Me, their avatars look really cool.
Yeah.
And they'll wear, and I've talked to them, they talk about using AI to instantly create. Like, if you're, create, talk about knockoffs. If you can use AI to create a knockoff Gucci bag, but a digital Gucci bag, so that the flood of goods on the internet that you thought you owned the only $10,000 Gucci bag on Minecraft is now all of a sudden flooded with fake Gucci bags on Minecraft. That's really next level.
So it sounds like, from your perspective, AI can really have a chilling impact on brands' intellectual property, whether it's an entertainment brand, a luxury house, a sports brand. It seems like that can be a real problem.
it can be a real problem, definitely. But I think like these gatekeepers, like we said, if it's where are all the virtual goods happening on Roblox, like Roblox will shut that down if you're PacSun and somebody's making counterfeit PacSun virtual goods. But if we do proceed to a place where it's all blockchain and metaverse and it's like everyone's just moving seamlessly between these worlds, then it might become harder to police or easier to police. I don't know if it's all in blockchain, is it's all transparent. We can tell you're wearing a fake. So, okay, you have a fake one, but it's not the real one because it's not tied to the blockchain and very well established. Like we know you have a fake. Some people like fakes, I don't know.
True. So, along that line, like, do you feel brands and individuals should be obligated to disclose when artificial intelligence is used to create content?
Yeah, I think definitely in journalism, 100%. I mean, actually that's a harder question because it's not like I'll say, oh, I used Google search to find information about this subject when I wrote this article. But if you're using any text from an actual search engine or from an AI search engine, that should be disclosed if any of the text came from it. With images, if it's a news image, yes, of course. What news image could even be generated by AI? I don't know. So this is a tough question to think about.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So
should Photoshop be disclosed because they used it in their ad?
Personally, I don't think so, right? But then yesterday, Assemblyman Vanel mentioned that there's a bill that's running through the state right now that would obligate politicians to disclose that they're using artificial intelligence in their ad campaigns. But to your point, if AI is, your earlier point, if AI is really just a tool to execute a creative vision, but it's the individual that's still harnessing that creative vision that it's being augmented through the use of AI, is that disclosure really needed?
Maybe in political ads. Maybe that's a good use case because if the old political ads, we remember it was if you just like turned down the tint or like made it slow motion, that would make it like look evil enough. So I don't know if you disclosed how you did that when you put that on TV, but AI, if you don't know, in those instances it might be important to say, like in political advertising or food, like our McDonald's burgers don't look like this sort of thing.
So going back to one of the earlier comments as far as like the big companies that are in AI now, OpenAI, Meta, Microsoft, Google, right? Is that a fair, those four?
That's a good rundown,
right?
yeah.
So who do you think of those four horses will win this race ultimately?
Who wins AI? Man, it's tough to bet against Google. OpenAI could have more. It's interesting because all the companies that spend money on this are giving money to all of them. So if you're an advertiser and you work with Google, you also work with Amazon, you work with OpenAI, you work with Facebook, Meta. So everyone's getting worked with. So they're all going to be in AI and they're all going to be winners. I don't know if there's a way to not be.
Do you feel like the companies that are, essentially wrapping the technology to create a new product will ultimately go away, and perhaps it's intellectual property rights and distribution that will help win the AI war?
How so? I can maybe see that, but what do you mean?
Well, there are so many companies that are just, plugging in, let's say, OpenAI's technology in to launch their own, version of GPT that might be a little specialized, right? But ultimately, they're just repackaging, GPT. So who wins, right? Is it the celebrity that owns their intellectual property and can harness their voice to create a music vertical, like Grimes and The Weeknd have done now? Or will these small companies that are wrapping their brand's positioning around the technology have a chance?
I think some of the places I've seen ChatGPT get integrated is like, yeah, companies have to put it on their website so that you can talk to that ChatGPT, or it has to be on an app or something. So companies are taking that technology and they are putting a wrapper around it, and it's their brand's version of ChatGPT. So I think all companies are going to do that. In music, do you think it's better to put all your music out there like Grimes and just say, let's let it all out there and let anyone use my voice, or do you want a lockdown and a hold over it?
I think from a branding perspective, artists should have a hybrid business model. I think they need to preserve the integrity of their creativity and lock down their creative vision, right? So a music artist like Grimes, where she releases her own version of a new album or a new song. But then I love the idea of unlocking the intellectual property, her voice, to allow for the whole planet to become creative. And I think that the potential to monetize that type of use of AI will, in many cases, including Grimes, dwarf the revenue that she'll create, that she'll generate from her original music in comparison.
Yeah, I think that's a choice. For
Are you interviewing me now?
Well, yeah, I was trying to see where you would take it.
Yeah.
If you would open it up, should Marc Beckman have to, make an AI of yourself and then just let the world use it?
Yeah, I think these musicians, it's a new monetization model. And I think if they control the digital twin, if they control their voice, they'll be able to monetize this in different ways, including advertising.
Yeah, no, that's definitely some way it'll go. But then I think there's going to be, like the Beatles, they were never on even like Apple Music until on iTunes until 10 years later or something. So some of the, if you're still the best of the best, you guard it with your life. But there's going to be challengers that come up and they'll have different views and just put it all out there.
For sure. So when I introduced you, I told everyone that you're really at the forefront of innovation and technology. And I really believe that. I've been following your work, as you know, for over a decade. Can you predict for everybody in the room and everybody watching us on YouTube right now where you see great innovation coming from in the next 12 to 18 months? Stuff that we haven't heard about yet.
Oh man, that we haven't heard about. Well, I think if it's something you never heard about, I probably won't say that, but I will say I think video will get better in AI. I think that's the next step for generative AI to get good. Other technology that I'm following is probably, I think the spatial computing, which you've all heard of, will start getting better, and people are playing games like Roblox I know people laugh at the metaverse now, sort of, but people seem to be using these devices, mixed reality. I find kind of cool, it's sort of like in advertising. Have you ever seen 3D billboards? I'm always interested when I come across those. I'm like, wow, that looks cool. And I think that's sort of like holographic, I hate to say it, people hate advertising, but it's everywhere. So there's going to be holograms. It's a Minority Report.
So will we all experience advertising in a way in the future that we haven't experienced yet historically?
I think it's the way people think it's gonna look, but it will look cooler, or like in places that people just don't even realize. And talking about AI, the more it's generating content, and the less you realize this is even advertising. Like when you're on TikTok, the bounty paper towel roll behind the TikTok creator is not there by accident. Or at some point AI will put the product placement onto TikTok. We have virtual product placement on connected TVs. It's all moving onto YouTube, onto TikTok, and everything is advertising.
Will AI be able to personalize product placement eventually?
Yeah, I think it is already. But yeah, not as ubiquitously as it will, and it definitely will.
Interesting. All right, let's open it up. Does anybody have any questions? There's a microphone right behind you, actually. If you can use the microphone, that would be very helpful, please.
Hi. Thank you for the talk. I have a question about generative AI advice. I was curious, the Universal and YouTube deal and things in athlete, and they're exploring, it sounds like. But what would you suspect the bigger players and independents, like who will they be in the entertainment and brand space with respect to buying and selling generative AI and synthetic rights?
I think it is being led by the music studios because they are the most litigious, and they were the first with Napster and things like that. They've always been the first to clamp down on copyright. I think there will be general tools for the public too, where when you're using generative AI just on your own, the platforms will have to take some responsibility for it to assure you that you're not infringing on some rights. But there will always be platforms that you can access where it will be completely open because people want to get access to all material. They don't want to just have like a sanitized version of AI to use. They want the full throttle thing. If that helps, I hope that answers partly.
Just to take it a little further, I think the issue, my background is law. So it's a very interesting issue when you talk about intellectual property and artificial intelligence. And I predict that we are going to see several cases ramp all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States as it relates to these topics very soon, within the next 12 to 18 months. And a lot of them are going to be pegged against what we've done historically. So, Garrett has referenced a lot of technology that we've looked at in the past during our conversation, bringing it all the way up to date as it relates to AI. I think the Supreme Court will do the same thing. So for example, there were cases that analyzed whether or not a photograph that was created with a digital camera is able to be copyrighted. And the Supreme Court ruled that where an individual is manipulating the technology to create that digital image, that in fact that IP could be legally protected. And I think we'll see the same thing here, running all the way up. And that will happen as it relates to singers, creators of images, creators of film, and beyond.
No, who are we going to lose? I hate to pick a loser.
I promised Garrett we would bet on the winners tonight.
Yeah, they're all winners. I guess the most vulnerable is Meta, right? Just because of their situation as being a walled garden where it's like if you don't continue using it, then it's at risk. But it's so big that if it doesn't innovate, it will take a while. And Meta also was a little behind in how its AI worked and what it was developing, like what its strategy was.
And isn't Llama open sourced?
And Llama is that large language model is open
Yeah,
source.
it's a major cultural shift for Zuckerberg, right?
Right, they're giving, and OpenAI was supposed to be open source as well, but they sort of
They're not doing
insular.
it. Yeah, they're not doing it.
So
It's open isn't open.
open isn't open, but yeah, not as surprising it is. Maybe that is the difference, though. Maybe that will keep them competitive because people will build with them and see them differently.
I think so. I think so.
Let's go. Just one point I was going to make is, okay, so I have an artist friend who's like super into AI, I'm honestly involved in. And one of the things that I'm trying to help him with submitting, what I'm trying to say is that when you generate these things from AI, which is not like art, they're images, right? But we can do a lot with images that are very useful and interesting. That's sort of like helping artists just a little bit, cool, because I don't want to think as an artist that art is being replaced. Anyway, but my real question is that you alluded to the fact that you do not want your job replaced by AI, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way. In this room, I put into the workforce, I'm sad. We all get replaced before we get that opportunity. So, what are you personally doing to insulate yourself from that danger?
Personally, I'm learning about AI to make sure that whatever version of journalism is going on in 10 years, I'm still doing it. And I think it, like I said earlier, I think it's sort of like learning Google search 20 years ago. You're like, wait a minute, here's this new thing. If you're just not up on it, you're not gonna be. All of a sudden, we were able to make news articles that much quicker because we had the internet. Now we have AI, which you have to use a little bit. I'm not as worried though, because if anybody plays with ChatGPT and asks it to write a story for them, you tell me if it's any good. I don't think it is, not yet.
I think that GPT is not as compelling as it relates to its writing ability as an individual like you or your colleagues. However, I do think it's telling that the AI has been trained in such a short period of time to pass the bar exam, to pass, certain tests. So I wonder, like when we talk about Bard versus GPT, one issue is I think Bard has more up-to-date knowledge, right, than GPT. I think GPT cuts off at 21.
Yeah,
Bard
because
goes up to
intentional limits that it doesn't get involved in current events.
right, and then I think Bard goes up to 23, correct?
I think Bard is current, yeah.
So will these artificial intelligence platforms be able to customize and take on certain writing nuances that your colleagues might have to become more sophisticated?
Yeah, that's a good point. I shouldn't be blasé about it because if you're searching for the news and you're just asking it for hey, this is a topic I'm interested in, and then all of a sudden it starts taking snippets from my articles, and you're no longer clicking over to Ad Age to read the article, you're just reading it in Bard, then that messes with the industry. That's something publishers are very worried about. So those sort of things technically are worried about, but we've been worried about Google and Meta.
But look at your work. When we started, I spoke about the work you just did with regards to YouTube. I mean, that interview is incredible. So there's no way that artificial intelligence would be able to get that story. It's the person, like the humanity, that still will transcend the AI.
I have that hope as well.
Right?
I think so.
Any other questions, guys? Please.
Thanks for the position. I think many of our serious friends like Gucci, Berkeley, ran the promotion of the Metaverse platform and Roblox and Cinemax. But I was following, but didn't really hear the results of their results of the virtual events. And in my opinion, a lot of time the press spends so much money in marketing with the emerging technologies. But there are always questions with efficient method and context of generating the revenue. And I
Can you just say it just a little again? I didn't get the last part.
It's hard, it's difficult to hear from that microphone because the speakers are in the back of the room. It might be easier if you don't use the microphone. Yeah, please. Sorry.
So, the last part, right? So I'd like to hear how you see the unseen purpose of using those emerging technologies in marketing campaign behind the scenes.
The unseen purpose?
Yeah, the unseen purpose. Because I was thinking, like, there's always questioning if it's really efficient to use those technologies, like augmented reality or like virtual setting, for the marketing campaign, because I couldn't really find a link how those marketing can generate the kind of revenue.
In which platform, like where do you think virtual worlds?
So like the Roblox, I saw the Gucci was doing the virtual campaign on Roblox, so people can actually like buy those digital assets on Gucci brands, but like it was all the digital assets, and I couldn't really think of any benefits other than like attracting the younger generation, but like they're not sort of, it's like investment.
Oh, you think the unseen purpose is there's an unseen purpose about tracking and just maybe there's no point to it generating revenue, but there's could be some benefit somehow. I think it's experimentation. I don't think there's like an unseen purpose. Like they're just like, hey, let me experiment here. But yeah, with all internet advertising, they're trying to track you. That's for sure. So all the better. But it could also be for data gathering, or not like nefariously. It could just be like, let me experiment, see what the younger generation thinks in Roblox, how much of our market is here, virtual goods. Let's try it out. It's just like literally play money for them.
Yeah, the brands, in my experience, the brands that are playing in gaming metaverses like Fortnite and Roblox and Zepeto have had some tremendous success. By way of example, NARS Cosmetics launched not too long ago in Roblox. And according to a colleague of mine at NARS, they had 100 million users of their digital color palette to be used on avatars in game. Now, interestingly, as per Garrett, none of that was monetized. However, the parent company of NARS, Shiseido, did report that that interaction with the younger generation had a positive halo effect on the physical sales of NARS Cosmetics. So, to Garrett's point, I agree. I think a lot of brands are trying to reach young millennials and Gen Z and even Gen Alpha where they are. And I think artificial intelligence is going to play a big role in gaming metaverses through user-generated content. And we were talking about this before we started, where kids can now go in, or all of us can now go in and design through tools like Unreal Engine and build environments that are hyper-realistic, that are dreamlike, that are beautiful, where we're all pulled into Fortnite, not to shoot guns, but to experience perhaps a beautiful luxury brand. And maybe that drives us into the store on Madison Avenue to make the purchase.
One other interesting thing I've seen in that is that brands can also use these virtual goods just to see if there's interest in that product when it's digital. Like, oh, do they like this design or that design? And before they produce anything in the real world, they've tested in the digital world to see if there's a market for it. So that they're not creating something that just sits on shelves. They're like, oh, there is a market. They can take data like that to then translate to the real world and make it part of their strategy. I'm also, can you speak into it?
Yeah, it's tough because that microphone goes to the back of the room, so it might be better if you turn the microphone off and scream. Sorry.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So I'm in career services here at SPS, and I always listen to these conversations with the lens of where are the jobs leading, where are they going. I'm hearing a lot today in your chat about verification
Yeah, and companies, they're gonna all need heads of AI and intellectual property. So at the companies themselves, then there's the Deloitte and Accentures that I think those sort of like mega consulting firms that do that kind of work. And then if there is editorial work for a watchdog group to do fact checking, I mean, there are fact checking organizations that already try and do that with just misinformation in general. So there will always be room for more, always cybersecurity experts that will have to make this part of their repertoire. So yeah, those are definite.
Yeah, I think just to take that concept a little further, I believe that artificial intelligence is going to play a major role in driving cryptocurrency and NFTs, as well as blockchain. And one great use case of blockchain technology is authentication. So with things that are critically proven to be real, maybe it's an ID, maybe it's a piece of artwork, perhaps it's even an ad campaign, right? An original ad campaign. Those elements will ultimately be minted on the blockchain. So people will be able to distinguish with no uncertainty what's actually real versus perhaps user-generated content or deep fakes and beyond.
The blockchain be sort of publicly visible, like a watermark, if you will? Like, is that a fake ad for Nike or real? Can I somehow verify that this is a NFT watermark or something in that content?
I think that's supposed to be how it works, that there can be some metadata within media that will authenticate it. It's still not perfect because the blockchain is very hard to read. It's supposedly super transparent, but we're all going to have to just pour through chain of code to authenticate things. So there could be job opportunities for the companies that do that and do the authenticating and create the infrastructure of trust.
Hi, my name is Chauncey Lewis. I study at NYU Real Estate and Sustainability. And my question for you is, so I remember reading something about architects designing these like new structures in these like, I guess, worlds or whatever. So my question for you is, I guess, where do you think the future of real estate is going for every profession, even just agents to lead generation and next like 10 years, 5 years?
In the real world real estate or in like the metaverse real estate?
Both.
Wow, that's a whole other hour conversation.
Yeah, the real estate, AI will help you do your videos of the land you're selling. AI will find your potential leads for customers. AI will run your campaigns on Meta. So it will have something to do if you have a smaller real estate business. So it will have applications there and maybe similar things in the metaverse.
Thank you.
You want to do last question and then we'll let Garrett? Yeah, we'll let Garrett go.
So in terms of creative staff for, say, a visual artist or someone that makes creative work for brands, what do you suspect is the baby in the bathwater? Like, is it going to be Photoshop plus Midjourney and ChatGPT for the copy side? Is it, going to be Final Cut and Runway or something, like what? I'm studying interactive media arts and I've been mostly client side and some agency side, and now I'm really getting into the craft, like in my master's. And it's interesting, there are just so many tools, and it's like, I don't know how to prioritize and how to make sure I don't miss the traditional layer.
I'm not as familiar with all the tools. I think your next guest is coming up to talk about like every potential platform. Is that right? So I'll let that question. You're going to get that question answered if you're sticking around. So that's a good tease.
I think just to follow up a little bit, there's also there are issues, right? Like there are certain nuances to each vertical that you just spoke about, right? Still imagery versus moving picture, audio content, and beyond. And currently there are certain platforms that are offered that I think are better than others. And I think you'll hear Chris, he went through this yesterday in depth, and you'll hear him follow up today, but you'll get these nuances from Chris today, specifically as it relates to Midjourney. But I think a lot of that is based upon intent of use. I've seen them. It's a little overwhelming what's going on. AI, everything is being produced at such a high rate. Like I've never seen, if you follow like what's going on just simply on like X right now, the content that comes out specifically as it relates to products that are available is just overwhelming.
Well, the question's about looking at the future. Do you think there'll be an Excel and will there be one, or will it really be a plethora of products all the time with apps, like an app store?
Again, next speaker will know more than me on this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting now. You're already seeing plugins on the Microsoft Office applications for AI,
that's true.
right? Like it's already there, so.
But the bespoke tools that are really going in deep are there's things we play around with as consumers, and then there's the professional stuff. So I'm not as familiar with what professionally will be great, but will Microsoft write your emails for you going forward? A little bit.
It's funny because they offer that, like there are certain AI tools that offer that now, but from a professional perspective, I wouldn't trust any of them to be able to get the quality of content, expertise, and emotion through an email that's important for me.
Yeah, no one needs that. I don't know. Nobody reads email anyway.
All right, so with that, Garrett's been really generous with his time. We got Chris waiting.